Bonsoir, tout ici. Bonsoir, Jean Saint-Lucie. Bonsoir, ça c'est Pale Fwanchman au soir avec moi, Ras Ipa. Avec nous sur télévision Calabash au soir, ça c'est CTV, télévision Calabash. Et comme on a 10 autres, c'est moi, Ras Ipa. Au soir, nous ne pouvons pas parler en chien. Nous pouvons dire, nous voulons dire bravo pour la police, puisque yo, expressement police trafic. Police trafic, yo parle fort sur ça fait trafic. Yo dit comme ça comme si yo kay commencer à sauyer à ce monde qui doit l'argent, qui tenait ticket, qui pas payer ticket. And this is a situation that I'm sure you all will understand. You know, that's why I'm saying bravo to the traffic police. They took a kind of drastic stand, a kind of serious stand. I hope that the criminal side of the police force will take a stand like that. I hope the Ministry of National Security would take a stand like that in terms of the most terrible things that happen in the country. The other pandemic on the other side, lot pandemic là, lot epidémie qui a tué nous ici. Crime. À nous tant ça premier ministre là, avec ministre National Security qui a dit à ce pas ça. Même manière, and I want to say in the same way that the traffic police could talk so tough on these minor infractions. And I want to say minor infractions because it's not about driving without undue care and attention or dangerously driving. It's about sometimes you park your vehicle, you're in a hurry, you want to do something, or you take a chance and you get a ticket. And you're breaking the law. It's a fact. But you're not really endangering the business sector, the future investors of the country. You're not endangering these people. The people who are really endangering these potential business people, investors in St. Lucia are criminals. This is a crime situation. And we are not hearing no tough talk about that. All we are hearing is lectures, some stop that, the people and things and stuff, we have to live in unity, we have to live in love and so on. That's what you get from the Minister of National Security. Exact brûler moi fond chez moi. Moi pas content pièce qualité manière. Moi vle tant nom nan ka parler et moi vle tant autres ka parler fort coup crime. C'est bois qui doit là ka tuer moun nan. C'est crime violence là. Qui a empêché pays ça et d'ouvrir mener si posé. Comment nous kay wabattre? Ça c'est une situation nous actuellement et nous devons demander comment nous question ça là. L'autre ba la moi vle demander monsieur Hiller. Monsieur Hiller, comment nous ka vinn ban nous toute qualité exquise pour quand moun hoteni pour mener en Dubaï. En contre, monsieur Hiller, zot doubout tout l'autre projet. Mais zot pas doubout ces projets de Dubai là. You didn't stop the Dubai projects. You all stop all other projects, housing projects to help St. Lucians get affordable housing. Zot croiser ça, zot la just ça, you all mash that down. Stop that. There. Comme ça, monsieur Richard Frederick, excellent qui peut-être boss là, moi pas, c'est le qui boss man là. Zot ferme chemin qui kay Gozile, the Gozile highway. You all stop these projects, but you all keep the Dubai thing, right? But it's the same thing where Allen Chastanet established. And you all keep it there. Zot chen member gay la Chastanet qui met ça by ça là. Zot chen ni là. Moi si zot peut-être pas ka dire la vérité, puisque si zot te ka dire la vérité, nous ka entendre la vérité. Ils ont dit comme ça, c'est tout ça te a bien payé pour ces gens Dubaï là. Peut-être les leader opposition sortent de ça pas vrai. Ils ont venu ils ont dit qu'on a la $300,000 US qui déjà mettait à sous côté pour faire projet ça là. Mais ils ont dit qu'on a quoi la partenaire assez monde pour capter l'argent. So this is a serious situation. He was saying that in the first instance that this what was bundling around was that these projects, the Dubai thing, was all paid for by the Dubai people. But then when the leader of the opposition came around and said, well, no, this, that, and so on and so on, else, he all said, when you all came back, that this was $300,000 or more dollars US that was already allocated for the project. So then you all realized it was too little people going up for so much money, and you all had to add more people to it and more programs and more this and more that. Are you all smart? Or you're just trying to bamboozle people, or just plain telling people something probably that may not be the truth? I don't know. I don't know who. Nobody's going to accuse you here, Mr. Hill, of lying, but I'm sure you are really conservative with the truth. But you know, this is and all of that. Tout ça. You're making statements that's supposed to be made by Emma, the Minister of Commerce. But apparently you are the Minister of Commerce, Minister of Tourism, Minister of everything. So, who say Minister tout bagay? Who say Ministre Commerce? Who say Ministre Tourist? Who say Ministre presque tout bagay? Quoi, ou sa parla sou n'importe bagay? Depuis yo zot fille a mokotan Emma di rien. Emma tourne moumou ebe ki sa ebe se même en vérité. Ma comprendre, plus bagay changer, plus la change, c'est plus la même chose. Avec ça, moi, c'est comme ça, nous y Saint-Lucie. Nous tenons 5 bateaux, là, hier, bateaux touristes, avec ces bateaux, ça, moi, je suis content pour moi, là, 5 différents bateaux, 5 cruise ships à Saint-Lucie. Mais tellement de monde nous pas bien monde visiter, ça pas capable nous une chance. C'est Rivendez là qui un arcade là avec un craft market là. Comme si c'est monde ça pas monde. Ça pas dit c'est monde place là pas certifié. So because the place is not certified, you all discouraging people to go there. And Mr. Hill tonight on the news is saying, well, it's a balancing act and so on. A balancing act what? If the people has a PCR test, a negative PCR test, they have what you call the vaccine. And the captain says, disembark and go wherever you wish. Why can't they come to the vendors market? They could walk all around town. We have been through a process, which is a training process. Nous allons process côté, yo entraîné moun arcade là, avec un marché. Nous joignons entraînement. So Pucci, ils sont un problème pour ces moun à venir là. C'est là tout seul, avec ces places là, seulement, moun sa jouen quand yo affecté avec coronavirus là. Monsieur, il laisse chaque là au parler, on va mettre pied en bouche. Quand on pas melek nous. Mais saison, ou même dit, saison a fini. L'autre mois, c'est presque dernier mois saison de pièce gourmandier. Avec l'autre bail là, on dit qui parle la vérité, on dit comme ça, les affaires touristes là commencé quand tuer en plein avec une grande quantité depuis en juillet. Ça pas vrai. Zot même qui ga bail administration en temps passé. You always giving the former administration endless horrors about how they're opening the country and they're bringing in tourists, and the places where tourists are coming from are places where has the highest set of infection of the coronavirus, but you open to them and you tell them why they opening the country. I remember Thaddeus and so on, you know, my life is important, just like we say, his lives matter, and so on. And today you boasted as if, well, it's from since the 26th of July 2021 that we have had this influx of tourists in St. Lucia. I'm sure you know this is probably a half-truth. But let's leave that there. Anyway, the CCC zot ni an responsabilité pour zot ça garder di nan koumanye c'est arcade là avec marché yé pour zot ronger bagay là avec les autres ronger pour ces bagay ça là ça certifier nous. C'est ça ces gens ministre touriste dit moi, ex ces gens ministre santé dit moi. Kwa se zot ki ni zot bagay la se lan men zot yi actuellement. Mwen kouye se moun nan, mwen kouye yo, mwen di yo koumen nou pou kon sa certifiye, moun pa ka vin la, moun ka dekouaje moun pou vin aked lek avec craft market la. Se moun di mwen kon sa, se moun nan ki ni pou bon mwen certification pour moi ça fait mon certificat. Yo jamande pour faire d'autres bagay. Les yo fin fait ces bagay ça là, yo kay kouye di yo excellent ça yo kay signer document pour y so certifié aked là avec craft market là. Oswe moi même pas ni m'a vle di en chay, moi a dit moi quoi pour moi si moi ni rien d'autre pour moi dire là. Moi j'ai dit en ça en chay avec mon pas quoi moi kay di d'autre. Moi kay ni pour chaîne ça là avec ça moi kay fait le présentement moi kay mener en tout mon moi quoi guest moi soir. So tonight for the purpose of this show, the importance of this show tonight, I'm going to introduce my guest, the Honorable former Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Honorable Allen Michael Chastanet, who's also leader of the opposition and also representative in Parliament for for Micoud South. Welcome to this program, Pale Fwanchman, Mr. Chastanet.
Great to be here tonight. Thank you so much, Ras, for inviting me.
And first time on this show, I'm sure.
First time, yeah.
Yes, and how you feel being on the
show? It's great, man. Well, it's not first time meeting you.
No, you're not first time meeting me, no.
So,
you have met me several.
So I feel at home.
You feel at home, yes, okay. I want to get a few things out of the way, and first of all, I want to say how you feel now. I mean, how you feeling as leader of the opposition? You were Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Today, you are leader of the opposition. How you feel being in that position? Just to clear that out for the moment.
Well, it's actually pretty easy. I mean, the fact is that what we're trying to achieve in building a new St. Lucia is not a destination. It's a journey. And so whether you're in government as the Prime Minister or you're in opposition as the leader of the opposition, the journey continues. And so there's always a contribution that you could make. You know, the funny thing is that when you're in opposition, and I had noticed that before, it's actually easier to have conversations with people than when you are in government. You know, when you sit down as a Prime Minister, people are a bit fearful because you're having a conversation with the Prime Minister and there's obviously something that you want to get. That's not a bad thing. And so if the meeting doesn't go well, the Prime Minister has an opportunity of saying no right there. Whereas when you're with a leader of the opposition generally has no authority. So it's a greater opportunity for listening and having a much more frank and meaningful conversation.
You mentioned the word fear, and I didn't really want to go too deep in that particular area, but you mentioned the word fear. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me in St. Lucia these days, or it's been some time now, that fear has really, overcome our society generally. People who in position or not or whatever, they always have some fear. Two things that are killing us, fear and ignorance. And the other thing is the question of, this reoccurring decimal, as if to say, whenever you're in opposition, you're supposed to suffer, and when you're in government, your people are supposed to be okay. And so you use the word fear about people who want to talk to you. Do you think people are afraid sometimes to say things, to do things, just because either the government is in power or in opposition?
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you, when you're speaking to an individual that's in government, and let's say it's the Prime Minister in my case, as much as you try to reach out, it's very difficult to get people to engage you in a hard, frank conversation, right? So I have found that when I've been in opposition, that it's an opportunity to really interact. So, and it's actually probably a good thing, Ras, because I'm one of those persons that's very convinced that while you're in opposition, you are supposed to be developing a plan, so that if the people of the country give you an opportunity to govern, that you can start governing from day one, and you have a very clear idea of where you want to go. And so we're lucky we had a plan, and many aspects of that plan worked. Some of the parts of the plan didn't work. So it gives us a good opportunity to go back, have conversations with each other, have conversations with other persons, reflect, and keep it updated, keep it relevant, because the world's changing every day. And that's why I'm saying to you, life is not even a destination. What you want today, all of a sudden when you achieve it, you will all of a sudden as a human being want more.
That's true.
And that's the reality.
I agree with you. You give people increase in terms of wages and it's still never enough.
No.
It's never enough. Okay. I want to get two things out of the way to get other things I need in the way. One of them was your statement about, and I want to say that I think I know what we were trying to make people understand. I don't know if you did it the right way or if you did it properly or if you didn't. But the whole thing about colonial have a conscience. Do you want to say anything about that just to put that behind your back and let's move on?
I'm sure. Sadly, because of COVID and also the Me Too movement and the Black Lives Matter, people's consciousness of particular words was much more heightened. So the statement I made was a statement I've made before, which was that economics doesn't have a conscience. And as bad as colonialism was, okay, at least it has a conscience. And I'm sorry I said it that way, because I should have probably just, not probably, I should have just stopped at saying economics does not have a conscience. It didn't need further clarification. Okay?
Yeah.
So what I was trying to say and explain, as a small island developing state, other countries don't care. Okay?
Yeah.
And so you have to take care of your economics.
Yeah. I think I just get it. I think you said exactly what I wanted to hear. Honestly. I want to be frank and I want to be fair. And the words that you use, it says everything well. And thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I appreciate it. The other thing is, what I really want to get out of the way is the Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to tell you, and I want to be frank with you, I was the one who really started this Black Lives Matter movement in St. Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
I called several people. Some of them, the names I will not call tonight.
Mm-hmm.
They doesn't like the kind of publicity and so on. They were part of it. There were some people I called and they said because of whatever, they won't be involved. People you have helped a lot. And they were probably in the same situation as what Black Floyd was involved in. But you know something? You were the first person, official in government, opposition or not, who supported Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
You put it on your Facebook page that we had some people in the community of Black Lives Matter who were, you know, they were supporters, strong supporters of the Labour Party, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
And they even questioned whether this Facebook page was really yours. If it was really you who did that, you couldn't believe it. So it really hit Black Lives Matter people like me when you said you believed that Black Lives Matter was a contributing factor for you losing the election. Mm-hmm. How you really come to that? Because one of the things we had you down for was what the unfortunate thing that happened was the non-permission, not permitting the Black Lives to have the rally they wanted to have.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that that's supposed to be something that will put you between the devil and a hard place. Because you're Prime Minister of St. Lucia. You couldn't be involved in something that the Commissioner of Police says no to. Mm-hmm. And that's a fact. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't be there. And there were those other people who fought well, and they called me and tell me, well, you know, they didn't permit you all. So anyway, I couldn't be there because I can't be arrested. People who are probably Prime Minister of St. Lucia now. But the point I want to make is, if the police had permitted this Black Lives rally, the mm-hmm. first one we wanted to have, mm-hmm. you would down to address this rally.
Yeah, I'd be first in the line.
And you would be first in the line. The reason why this Black Lives Matter thing, well, you know, rally would have been planned came out how it came out is because the plan was abandoned because of the
COVID protocols.
COVID protocols, and we were not permitted. But we decided to be defiant, and the kind of person I am, I want to make a mark. Black Lives Matter came about not for any political reason or not even for the question of any racial movement in St. Lucia. It was because we really wanted to make sure that St. Lucia was counted. St. Lucia was a part of, this movement that was in the world, that was gaining momentum everywhere. Because Black Lives Matter was there a long time before. But because of the because of the George Floyd situation with the chokehold, chokehold situation, it kind of revived a bit. And so we didn't want St. Lucia to be left out of being counted as part of this global movement, to be in solidarity. Now, it seems to some, it appears to some people as if somebody hijacked it. People didn't hijack Black Lives. They came out there, they took the opportunity because they realized that we didn't have our original plan there, and they came out and they said what they had to say. But it wasn't anything that Black Lives was anti any administration, including anti-Chastanet. So I would really want you to give me how it came out that you think, or you thought that, or you were saying that Black Lives probably may have contributed to you losing the election.
So it wasn't the movement of Black Lives Matter that cost me the election or had an influence on the election. I don't think it cost me the election. It had an influence on the election. It was the outcome of the movement. And I'll say to you, Ras, that, look, we have to all be honest with each other. Okay? And it's not, even before the Black Lives movement, it's something that was apparent to me. Okay? I don't want you to believe I'm naive to these things. The reality is, because of the complexion of my skin, regardless of what my heritage is, in St. Lucia, for most people, I'm a white man. When I go to the States, I'm considered to be a black man.
I agree to that.
Okay?
That's true.
So I'm always in the minority, position.
Everywhere you are.
So the reality is the Black Lives Matter movement raised people's consciousness. So the same way that people wanted to move a flag in the States or move a statue, it's because they became symbols of that we've not progressed. And the Black Lives Matter movement created a mobilization of action. Let's take control of the situation. Let's stop appeasing everybody, and let us make sure that our rights are being respected. And so they are symbols of that. And so the reality is that for some St. Lucians, having a person of my complexion being the Prime Minister of the country became part of the movement. But not the movement. It's an outcome of the movement. So it wasn't the Black Lives Matters movement in itself. It was the consciousness that it created in some people. And for some people, it became racial. And I became, sadly, a part of the relics that needed to be changed. Why can't we have a black man as the head of state of our country? And it should be, and that's the way it should be. I mean, for the fact is that a person that looks like the majority of the people in St. Lucia, and I get that, and I personally, I don't have any difficulty with it. I understand that, okay?
And so you would say that the not giving permission at the time didn't help, and probably that wasn't you. I would
yeah, so it wasn't me, and the reality, look, Marvin Charles said something, okay? From Miku, where he said that when we were introducing the protocols for COVID, it came across that I personally hated people.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's only now afterwards that he can say, wow, I didn't hate people, I actually loved people.
I heard that.
Okay? So the fact is, and that's why I'm saying to you about the movement, the Me Too movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, and then COVID, all created contradictions. Mm-hmm. Okay? So what is COVID about? It's about confinement. Okay? What are those movements about? Liberation and freedom. Yeah? So they work opposite to each other and became a rallying cry for some people. And this is where, again, we talk about the half-truths. So the half-truth became that Allen Chastanet was oppressing black people because he was not letting them go out. He was preventing small businesses from succeeding because he hated black people. Yeah? And it fell into a narrative that could have easily been, but was not the movement. That's not what Black Lives Matter was about.
Yeah.
Okay? It wasn't about Allen Chastanet.
Right.
But for political reasons, and we were in the political time where elections were coming. So even the idea that, God forbid, that I was going to have an elections in a state of emergency, okay, and that there would have been any controls on people during the election period, because that was again a white man oppressing black people, and that the arrogance of me. So that is how, in many ways, in my mind, it was interpreted. And you're 100% right. We didn't adjust to it fast enough, because it's not something that comes naturally to me to believe that solutions would think of me as being that. I know that they see me, some of them see me as a white man, but I would have thought by now people would have understood, regardless of what I look like, I'm a solution.
Yes, of course.
Okay? And everything I have done in my life is always been about putting St. Lucia first. Okay?
I appreciate your response to me. It's probably what I was expecting. I thank you for that, because I wanted to get that out of the way, because it troubled me, because we have not bring this organization to any level where it has wind, but I'm still the interim chairman of Black Lives Matter. And it worries me. I mean, even journalists came to me and they were disappointed in the way I responded, because they thought I would come out and say, yeah, Chastanet. And I said, well, Chastanet was one of the first persons to really support Black Lives Matter. And I was a bit taken aback to hear what he said about we caused him, or probably managed to. But again,
I remember one of the persons that was behind the scene. I'm sure when I tell you this story, you'll know who the person was. When they talked and they wanted to come and the Duke de Cast statue that is in the George V Park, they wanted to have it removed. Okay? And my response was, well, if you want to move the Duke de Cast, let's go a step further and let's change the name of Castries.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Castries. Yeah.
Because that's who Castries is named after.
After, yes.
Right? So the reality is that there are probably a lot of things that we're going to have to go back and reflect and understand. The Kenyan ambassador gave at the UN, gave a really great speech at the Security Council. And he said, look, with Africa, the boundaries of Africa were established by our colonial past. They don't follow culture, ethnicity, language, okay? And we could have, as leaders, after we got our independence, tried to rationalize those borders, but it was going to be too difficult. And we've agreed to accept it. So the fact is, I think the first part is to be conscious of our history and to be able to now absorb it and then determine which are the things that are so extremely offensive and contradictory and that we're going to change it. But there has to be a forum for us to have that kind of discussion.
I agree. We need to have forum to express. Talking about forums, and one of the plagues that are really affecting St. Lucia today is the surge and the upsurge in criminal activities in the country. And I'm sure you'll see this could have a very serious effect on investments and things of that nature and so on. And you were trying a few things, but what you think now it has escalated in a point where we have sometimes two murders, happening in the country, gun violence and so on and so forth. And the last time Kenny Anthony tried something, he said he was giving criminals money for guns, and they give him a set of old guns, and probably they use the money to buy better guns. What do you think is a solution for these problems we have there? People are not trusting police, they're not trusting a witness is not coming forward to give information, and all your ideas about tourism and tourism and the grandest ideas, and I'm sure some of them are really good ideas. But do you think that people will have confidence in coming and invest in St. Lucia with the crime situation we have here now?
Well, I would hope that we would solve crime for ourselves and not for tourists.
Yeah.
Okay, you and I have had this conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
Tourism benefits if a country respects itself.
Of course.
So if we respect ourselves and we have a clean country, respect ourselves in that we have a crime-free country, right? We're respectful of laws, we respect other person's cultures. These are the things that really make a very good destination. Mm-hmm. But they first have to be conscious in us, mm-hmm. right? To solve crime, it's not one thing. And I would say this to you very clearly. By the time the police get involved in a crime case, it's because the crime has already happened.
That's true.
Okay, so the police are actually coming in after
the fact, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So the issue is, how do we be proactive on crime?
Prevention.
And preventing it. And what are the root causes of crime?
Correct.
So we know that certainly access to guns.
Access to guns, important, yes. Correct.
Is one of the things.
Yeah, one of the things.
The second thing then is the younger people who believe going into a life of crime is a better choice for them than going to work and building a family and putting in the hard time. So here it is, a guy who's on the block, okay? Yeah. I don't know what time he wakes up, okay? Has a spliff, sits down, he's with his comrades and they always big him up and stuff like that, all right? And versus you're going to tell him he needs to leave his home at 4 o'clock in the morning, get on a bus transportation to go to a construction site, okay? Work very hard, because construction work is not easy, okay? And they get paid how much money at the end of the day, and he has to dole that money out, right? That's very difficult. So we must be realistic in ourselves, in our society, as to the choices that people are being confronted with. And so why is a gang an alternative? Because a gang becomes a small business. Right? That's exactly what it is. And in order to protect the gang, it is the guns, it's the knives, right? It's the brotherhood, it's putting fear into people, right? And so this has been a problem all around the world. It's not unique. St. Lucia is not unique in that regard. So the first thing is that we've got to stop the guns from coming in, and we must also show people that if they commit a crime, that they're going to get arrested and they're going to be convicted very fast.
That's the other thing. Justice, okay? Swift justice, yes.
Swift justice, right? And then the other thing is that how do we start creating things in our society to give younger people an alternative? Right? So I'm a huge believer in sports, right? I think that sports at a young age teaches people very important values, how to compete, how to follow the rules, how to respect other people, okay? Discipline. Now, in order for sports to be successful, Ras, it has to be competitive. If a young guy knows he can smoke spliff, drink beer, and be the best football player in St. Lucia, he's not going to push himself. And so he's not going to take the time required to do it. But if he starts realizing that to compete, he's going to have to train, he is going to have to cut out the drugs, he's going to have to cut out the alcohol, okay? And he's going to have to work very hard. The reward that he gets when he succeeds is that much greater. So there are two sporting programs I'll share with you. One is the athletic program in Jamaica. If you're going to be an athlete, a track and field athlete in Jamaica, okay, you're going to have to train hard. You're talking about Usain Bolt and the number of great athletes that were there. And so they have several clubs, and those clubs are very competitive from a primary school to secondary school to a senior level. The other good example is the aquatic center here in St. Lucia. 7 clubs using 125 meter pool. And those clubs on a regular basis are competing against each other. And then when they want to bring somebody, teams from outside, you can bring 2 or 3 teams and you have a major tournament that's taking place, right? And that competition on a regular basis motivates the kids, right? And in that motivation, dedication. And they start understanding what it takes to become very successful. So it's to give kids something to do after school. So it's to put zones in place, create clubs so that kids can join a club. A club offers you football, offers you track, offers you cricket, offers you tennis and basketball and swimming. We also were now putting in physical facilities around the islands to create those zones, right? So after school programs becomes very important. And then the other big one, Ras, let's face it, and I've brought this up many times, we have too many examples of single mothers who end up having kids from a very young age, don't finish high school, and sadly, in many cases, third generation. Their mother did the same thing and their grandmother did the same thing. And they're trying to raise these children by themselves with no help. Now, who do you think that the child hates? Their mother? Or the society that has no support for their mother?
I love that part there, and I'll come and I'll try to develop that point there a bit further, but we're going to take a break now, and we'll be right back with our discussion. Remember, we are streaming live on Facebook/Calabash TV, as we are here today with the leader of the opposition, Honorable Allen Chastanet, and also member of Parliament for Micoud South. We'll be back.
Lucelec will terminate any account on its system that remains disconnected for 90 consecutive days. In such cases, the meter and service line will be withdrawn. Similarly, Lucelec will repossess any meter or service line on vacant or abandoned properties. These measures are to ensure safety and to reduce electricity theft. To reinstate the electricity service, the final bill at the time of the meter withdrawal must be paid, and an application for a new connection made to Lucelec. This means the property must be re-inspected and recertified by the Electrical Department of the Ministry of Infrastructure before service can be provided. Call Lucelec for additional information.
Okay, my name is Siobhan Monrose alongside my partner over here, Tristan Matthews, and we represent Monrose Distribution. And today's product that we have on showcase is called Setli Savon. Of course, if you don't know, it's called St. Lucia Soaps. Okay, so the soaps are all 100% natural or 100% handmade. We do have a line of 9 soaps right now. We started off with the sea moss soap first, then we went to sea moss and coconut, which we called Cocoa Moss. Then we went to the honey and ginger, honey and turmeric, and then honey and ginger, which we call Old Honey. And then we went to Cuvera, which is cucumber and aloe vera. Then we moved into banana. So now we have banana, and then we also have a Bamos. If you're Spanish, you say Bamos, which is banana and sea moss. So we have 9 products altogether. And that's how we started. We started up just over a little 2 years ago, of course, during COVID, when everybody transformed and had to hustle and really put their mind to swimming and surviving. Okay, so the most popular soap right now is the honey and turmeric. The ladies love it, and the reason being is because it's used to remove dark marks, dark spots. So most people have a little dark spots here and there on the elbow and the face. So it is very, very popular, and it's very reasonable price. And again, all these soaps are unscented. They are natural, 100% natural. So there are no perfumes, no additives, nothing of the sort. Everything is 100% natural ingredients. Okay, so they can follow us on Instagram at Monrose Distribution, or they can email us at monrose.distribution@gmail.com.
Christine Samuel, Artistic Director, Designer of the brand Christie Creations. Okay, so basically what I do one-of-a-kind, handcrafted, hand-painted bags. I've also lately expanded my brand by creating jewelry made from our local bamboo plants. And also I make lovely clothing and hand paint all of my clothing for men and women. And also I publish my book. I would love people to at least try to get themselves a small token for this independence. They can get my bags. I sell at Sea Island Cotton Shop. I'm at Caribel up the Morn. And we are here today and tomorrow and Monday, so they can come down to the boulevard and just get something really nice for themselves. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, Christy Creations.
Bienvenue encore à continuer au soir. C'est Pale Fwanchman. C'est un programme spécial. That is a special program tonight with the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Allen Chastanet, and also Parliamentary Representative for the constituency of Mico South. So, Mr. Chastanet, you mentioned parents, single parents and so on. And as you notice these days, where single parents are employed? At the hotels. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the whole question of some of them are child rearing or child rearing age and so on in terms of that. How would you deal, or have you see the areas to deal with problems dealing with, you have children, you're out of work, how these children are taken care of? All that is responsible for the situation of crime too, because if no one is there, no one is taking care, everyone does what they want, there is no kind of center, daycare, whatever center to take care of this children. What do you think will happen to our society if that is left unattended? So how would you deal with something like that?
So and that's just how politics is. A lot of people are focusing on what the Labour Party has not done or they promised to do. But the reality is we need to also look at it in the perspective of what is it the United Workers' Party had promised to do. And so what we lost out on. And the 5 for 5 was that. 5 for 5 was to put a social net program in place in which it didn't just recognize and acknowledge vulnerable people, but it helped them. So eliminating the VAT on food items, and you don't have money to buy food, can't help you as a poor person. Subsidizing rice and flour and sugar for every single person in St. Lucia doesn't help a poor person. So the reality is that there are some people who just can't earn an income. Some of those single mothers. So we have to become the parent, the state. And that's why we said that what we would do for single mothers, one is we would pay for their health care insurance, so that when their child falls sick, they can take their child to hospital. If the child needs an operation or basic medication, they're going to get it. They don't feel marginalized. It becomes easier. We're going to help them with their electricity bill. We're going to help them with food vouchers. So the fish that we were buying, the chicken that we were buying, the vegetables we were buying from the farmers, all now go into the hospital, to the schools, and now to be able to help the more vulnerable people in our society. So we're helping the farmers, we're helping the fishermen, okay? But at the same time, we're also helping those persons who are in dire need, because they have to have a minimum standard of living. So that was part of the overall program. Now, in doing that, means that you're not going to use the VAT rate to help those persons. So it means you can streamline your VAT rate. We wanted to be able to lower the VAT rate to 10%, okay? And what was that to do? To drive more business. If you drive more business, it means the tax revenue government is going to earn becomes greater, but not at a higher rate. But we have to have funds that are dedicated to go in to be able to support more vulnerable persons, the elderly, who are surviving on a pension with no income coming in. So right now, with inflation taking place, who's there to help them? People go to sleep at night knowing that they're in problems, but not providing any direct resources to be able to help them. So we have to change government in order to be able to provide direct support to those persons. And we wanted that project, it's very important to understand, to be managed by local government. Because it cannot be managed out of castries, Ras.
Okay.
Cannot be.
The other thing is, you mentioned fish, the fishermen. Fishermen seems to be behaving as kind of subsistence kind of fishing. They go to sea today, they come back without fish. It seems the technology is not working. The technology is not, it's like you come with, you spend $500 gas to bring back 10 pounds of fish or 20 pounds of fish. Where we have the Japanese who are coming and build some infrastructure, sometimes fishing infrastructure. But to me, it needs a lot more than that. We need to bring fish, because fish are getting expensive now. And it seems that as if bringing fish from abroad is cheaper than the local fish, where the fisher folks bring in St. Lucia. How are we going to bring more fish, land more fish? How are we going to make these people take fishing more seriously so that we can bring in more fish to supply to the hotel industry and to people who want to eat fish as a form of protein and so on, and that it can sustain ourselves, and those who are involved in it can sustain themselves. And these small ships, these small boats, these small canoes, about 10 hundreds of them are everywhere you turn, when we probably need maybe a few fishing trawlers. And we can bring in more fish. We can have things to show people where fish is, and so on and so forth. How have you looked at that?
Sure. I mean, the fishing industry has two markets. You have your local market, which includes your hoteliers, and you have your foreign market, exports. The local market is what it is. It can't grow any bigger than what it is, right? The only way the fishing can grow is if solutions recognize, to your point, that fish is actually a better protein source than chicken. But we love our chicken, right? So fish's competition is pork, it is beef, it is chicken. Those are the suppliers of protein, and for the Rastaman, it's the beans that can provide protein. There are vegetables that provide protein for you as a substitute. So to get into the foreign business, there is an endless demand on the foreign market, but it's competitive. You're competing against the Japanese, you're competing against the Guyanese, you're competing against Vincentians, okay? Huge industries with bigger boats, mechanization and processing the fish, right? And when the fishermen out there cleaning the fish, they're putting it on ice because the value of the fish for the export market is in the fresh fish market. If we're going to process fish for a tuna fish in a can, we can't even begin to generate the volumes for that. So the reality is that there is a local market, and the smaller boats can meet the demand of the local market. And we saw that when the fisheries complex closed down, the solution entrepreneurs came to the game. They were the ones now buying the fish directly from the fishermen, putting it in a cooler in the back of their car, and now bringing the fish directly to people's homes. There's also a demand to sell to the grocery stores. There's a demand who the hoteliers want fresh fish. But the reality is, tourists who come down here, who go to New York City and who go to Paris and go to other bigger cities, get all kinds of variety of fish. And they think that because they're coming to an island, a tropical island, that there's lots of variety. You know, we have a joke in the hotel sector. We offer 3 types of fish: dawad, dolphin, and mahi-mahi. Okay? Yeah. But people want more than that. And then now it's the capability of our chefs to be able to use the type of variety of fish. People want octopus. People want oysters. People want all kinds of different seafood. So you are all going to be able to import seafood. So the reality is that fishing is a very competitive sector. To your point, if you invest in the bigger boats, it means you need to be competitive in the export market. And the fisheries complex was predominantly built for that purpose. But we never used it for that purpose. We always used it for domestic business. So the mathematics on the fisheries complex doesn't take a genius to figure out. You cannot buy a fish from a fisherman, clean it, freeze blast it, pay for the electricity for whatever number of months, and then sell the fish for the same price you bought for it. Because you have all these other costs.
That's true.
And then the fisheries complex is giving ice for free. Ice is the most expensive thing to produce because it's what? Electricity.
Electricity. That's correct. Electricity. The agricultural sector, let me just touch that a bit, and we'll go to other more serious matters quickly. Producing items. We have a small country, and some people say we have enough land that are wastage that are not being used. We have some lands from since way back when, some of these estates that are just there, lying there. And maybe the state could move in and get some of these traditional owners what they're doing, if they're not doing anything, to take them and turn them into model farms or something like that. But then again, these people have problems. You give to the hotels and they have to pay you 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months, 3 months and so on, or more. And then you allow them at the mercy of the big hotels and so on, the small farmers who technically are not equipped to deal with these big corporations, like these big hotel industries and so on, companies. How do you tend to deal with that? Because there should be some middle area that the farmers could send this produce there, and they will take care of the rest of the marketing and so on. And instead of leaving it to the farmers at the mercy of these people who, they're very smart, they're very intelligent, they know what they're doing.
So, Ezekiel and I worked really closely together. And I got to understand what I know about the agricultural sector through him, and then he got to know about the tourism sector. And we did a presentation where we showed what a hotel imports, what they use, and where it comes from. Yeah? And after we did an analysis, we realized that there are 7 crops, and maybe a little bit more, but we were starting with 7, that we believed that St. Lucia could be self-sufficient in. Now, let's understand what self-sufficient means. To produce enough that we would never not have, and we can produce it year-round. Because you can't produce crops on a half a year, a quarter of a year, because then the hotel has to import it, and the people have to import it the rest of the time. Mm-hmm. It becomes very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. Now, in order for the 7 crops to work, we had to now solve the water problem, because the water was the problem rainy season and dry season. Mm-hmm. And so hydroponics and greenhouses become the solution to that problem. Again, Ras, that there are a local market and there's an export market. Now, this is where the big difference between fresh crops are. Your carrots, your pineapples, your lettuce, your cucumbers, etc., which is for your local market, plus some regional market. Anguilla, Antigua, USVI, Barbados. Okay? That's the extent of the fresh crop market. And if you look at what that demand is, it's not going to use a lot of land. Particularly if you're going to go into now hydroponics and greenhouses, because the productivity is so much higher on a smaller piece of land. Okay? This is why bananas and cocoa are so important, and now CMOS, right? Because you're now dealing with a global demand. And St. Lucia doesn't even have enough land to supply what the global demand is on those products. Yes? And that's why it was so sad to see what happened with bananas. Because we had a system that was working. We went to the farmers taking over the system. And the simple thing of quality control before the product was exported broke down.
Oh my gosh.
So here's what happened.
Yes.
You're taking a banana that is shipped to the docks, handled, freight is paid to bring them to London, somebody handles them, goes into a warehouse, it's ripened to find out at that point that the crop is not good. And then now you have to pay to get it waste. The reality was 25-30% of the bananas that we were exporting were being rejected. And where was that money coming from? That money was coming from the price that was being paid for the good bananas. Okay, now the farmers don't want to hear that. So the farmer has believed that the moment that he sells the banana at the port, he should get his money. But that was to change, because when you went away from wind ban, okay, to FTO, FTO was owned by the farmers. They now were the ones taking the responsibility to the market. Nobody's taking that responsibility. So you have to have the system in place to make sure the quality is there. The next thing that happens to bananas is, from a climate change perspective, it's very vulnerable. The slightest wind. Yeah. And that's where cocoa now is a great crop, because cocoa is much more resilient to the weather. And it also helps with the type of soil that we have to hold the soil.
In the interest of time, it seems to me that our time when you're discussing things. I have about two political questions. One is in the hotel industry. Rescinding, projects or arrangements, agreements, I think I should say. So rescinding agreements from one government to a next, and doing it openly, because sometimes you can look back, I understand, in arrangements with one former administration to the next, but you call them, sit at the table and say, one arrangement you have is so and so. You have 15 years tax, let's say tax holiday. But anyway, you have 10, but something, we'll give you 5, but we want you to build a daycare here, or school here, or something here. You negotiate these things about. But right. To do these things openly and to send this message out there of what confidence it built in terms of St. Lucia products, St. Lucia arrangements with foreign investors and so on, when you decide to you rescind on agreements. What do you think about it?
So it's unprecedented. By unprecedented, it means it's never happened before.
Oh, shucks.
Okay? And I'm still not sure that that's exactly what happened. So when the minister came, to say that the cabinet conclusion has been revoked, somebody's lying. Because if the cabinet conclusion was revoked, it means that cabinet does not have the license to use the Queen's Chain. And they're building on the Queen's Chain. It means that planning had to stop the project. Project hasn't been stopped.
Well, you heard Cabot people say that they want to go into renegotiation. I understood that this happened just before Monday, before cabinet meets to have this small conference and so on. Mm-hmm. Cabot people say that. Now that sounds so sick to me, because you know why?
So I want to take this away from Cabot.
Yeah, because I don't think it's Cabot I want to blame. But
I want us St. Lucians to understand what's happened. By cabinet now saying they've done this, then that applies to any agreement that government has given. So let's say, Ras, that you found a government piece of land in town, okay, and you wanted to build a building on it. In order to build a building on it, the bank is going to require you to have a lease, okay? And the lease, how much money you want to spend will be how long the lease is going to be. If the lease is only for 5 years, they're not going to let you spend $1 million on the building, right? But if the lease is maybe for 50 years or 60 years, then they recognize that putting a more substantial building, you have a period of time to be able to pay the bank back. So I want us to think of this from a St. Lucian perspective. By what they have just done to Cabot, the same thing could happen to you. To us as St. Lucians.
And you mean future investors?
Anybody.
So what
so a cabinet conclusion, particularly on a commercial agreement, so Queen's Chain, incentives, crown land leases, etc., right? Joint ventures. All those things are things that the banks have accepted as collateral.
Okay.
So the moment now precedence has been established
yeah.
that a government can rescind, revoke a lease, then the bank is saying, well, this is not worth the value it's on.
Exactly.
So the bank is going to say, how can you guarantee me that the next government, they don't even know if there's going to be a next government, is going to continue the lease?
Yes.
So therefore, I cannot lend you the money past the 5 years.
So this is extremely dangerous. That's what you're saying.
For everyone.
For everyone. Us and future investors.
For locals, regional, and future investors. It's a very bad precedent to establish. And I'm hoping that somebody's lying.
I have heard you say that before, and I'm hoping that too, because it's not good for us. So stopping projects there, and then automatically someone called a program and said how a particular project is going to cost more to continue. Isn't that the reality? If you stop a project, it's going to cost more to continue it?
Well, you know, all the facts will come out. So let's take the Rodney Bay Road.
Yeah.
Okay. The Rodney Bay Road was done on a specific price. So it means that the contractor was taking the risk on the cost of the project. So if the cost of the project went up, he couldn't pass that cost of the project on. And he had to complete the project. So the government came in, stopped the project, and stopped it for a period of time that I understand now that the contract has been terminated. Okay? So it means now the government has to go in and assess the amount of work that was being done or has been done, pay the contractor for that work, and then now get a new contractor to complete the works. So the Rodney Bay Road is going to be much more expensive.
Much more expensive.
But you know what, Ras? The shame of this is that some people could not put sense together. The road was contracted for $15 million. So that's from up at the top of the Mongereau, no, is it Mongereau? The Monchy Hill?
Monchy, yes.
All the way to the bridge, Bonterre Bridge, okay, with 2 roundabouts. Sidewalks, double lanes, remove all the electrical poles, etc. Yeah? Yet, we paid $12 million for the Bois de Wange Bridge. How many years ago?
Yes, so true.
Okay.
Yes.
It would have been behooved the government to have allowed the project to finish. Because when we came into government, we amended the Crown Proceedings Act. What was that? The Crown Proceedings Act was a recommendation from the Ramshaw-Hoyd report. Remember the Ramshaw-Hoyd?
Yes, I remember.
And it was to say that the then government could not be charged because time had expired. So they recommended that the Crown Proceedings Act be amended so that in the future, if any wrongdoing was discovered afterwards, those persons could still be held accountable. So we amended that. So it means that there was no time bar. Let the project finish. If you discover that there was wrongdoing, hold those persons accountable. I mean, you say that you're putting the people first, right? So you're telling me that that's a project that should have been finished by September, the latest. Solutions have had to suffer through all that nonsense. Okay? The same thing then applies for shock.
Shock.
You have a piece of land that the former government acquired from a big business group. You said that the land had no value. A developer comes in and says, you know what? I believe I can develop that land. So allow me to use the land to get a mortgage. I will put the remaining amount of money in. I will put all of the investments in. When we sell the lots, okay, the first 20% goes to you and 80% comes to me until I have recovered the money that I put in to fix
because
up
I'm
the
the one
project.
taking the risk.
And then once I've recovered my money, the government gets 100%.
So
okay, and the government is putting no money in.
Yes.
It doesn't affect our debt to GDP. And we were creating jobs. You come in and you stop the project. Okay, now it means that you have to go and assess how much work was done by the developer,
and then
pay him the money before you can proceed.
Obviously more cost overrun. Two more quickly. I hope you can go through them as quickly as I want. One is the the Stevenson issue, Stevenson King. It's obvious to everyone that Stevenson King, at every given chance, would say bad things about his relationship with the UWP. Is it naive, or is it maybe because you all are probably genius, that you probably think, well, you didn't want the UWP to be hurt more? If if let's say they had won, you didn't want it to be deepened, and you didn't want to get rid of King, but you were asking him questions all the time. I look at the whole question of the whole story of Jesus, and as saying the night that one of you is going to betray me, and somebody said, put their hand on the chest and say, not me, and so on. So I was wondering, I wouldn't really want to believe that people like you and others in the UWP were so naive that you all didn't know, but I understood you were asking him all the time, are you with us, or are you here with us, and so on. Is it a question of naive or a question of genius in your part?
I don't think you could ever say it's genius. It's sad, if anything.
It's sad in terms of his position? It's
sad for everybody, okay? It's sad that a gentleman that dedicated his life to United Workers' Party and was so loved in United Workers' Party. Now, love and respected doesn't mean that people are going to always agree, okay? And I know you want a quick answer, but the reality is that after the elections of 2011, Steve did not want to get rid of Richard. So when we found out Richard did not have his visa, the decision was that let Richard run Castries Central as an independent. If we believed we were going to win the election and he won his seat, that once he now was able to sort out the visa issue, then he would come back in, right? That was the decision of the party. Steve is the political leader, which I guess he's entitled to. When we had the nominations for Andy Daniel, brought Richard back on the platform and brought him back into the party. Okay. And so we ran with Richard. Yeah, when we lost the election, the party asked Steve, what are we going to do for Richard? Right? Richard still could not give us an explanation as to why he lost his visa. That carried on, and then there were recommendations to restructure the party, and it didn't appear that Steve was buying into those agreements. So a group of people decided that they were going to contest against Steve. I wanted to be the chairman of the party. Eventually the group came to me and said, look, we want you to go in as a leader. So I said, before I accept, I want to be able to meet with Steve to tell him that. Steve must have understood what was coming, and we never met. And I ended up running as the political leader. I ended up winning as the political leader. Steve remained then as the leader of the opposition. When he was the leader of the opposition, he started having meetings with the then government and not informing his other ministerial colleagues. There was a lot of anger. There was then a meeting, an 8-hour meeting, that Steve attended, and 3 people from each of the constituency branches attended. And everybody expressed themselves in front of Steve. Steve expressed himself, and then there was a vote. And the vote was to remove Steve as the leader of the opposition. Okay? Steve was very angry, right? And Steve did not decide to come on to join the party until very late before the elections in 2016. That was the famous night of Yope.
Yes.
Okay, and then he gave it a prediction as to when he thought the election was going to be. Now, whether in fact Steve during that time was already colluding with the I don't know.
Yes,
okay, yes. But the reality is that Steve is loved, and people quickly re-embrace Steve back into the party. And understanding those kinds of feelings, I really went out of my way to make sure that Steve knew that I respected him. I gave him the biggest portfolio.
Yeah, yes, that's a big portfolio. For sure.
Okay? Yeah. And not only did I did not give him a basket to carry water. I gave him raised more money for his ministry than in the history of St. Lucia. Okay. Airport, $500, $600 million. Road redevelopments, almost $1 billion. Okay? The work that we were doing in the Ministry of Labor, the work that we were doing in the Ministry of Energy, right? All of that was under Steve.
Yeah. But
Now,
you all knew that Steve would doing this kind of
as I
bad
said,
talking, bad mouthing you all the time?
As
You knew
I
that?
said that when he made the decision, I said it was the worst kept secret in St. Lucia.
But it wasn't.
Well, it wasn't. I knew, but the reality is I had to take Steve for face value.
Okay. I get it. Because I'm trying to get to the point to say, listen.
You're talking to me the Sunday
Yes, the Sunday,
of
yes.
the Monday I announced the elections. The Sunday I met with Steve. The Sunday night Steve and I were on TV.
And you ask him,
Steve said publicly about how great we were
of
and all the things. And then you're telling me 2 days later you send me a letter to tell me that you suffered in silence for 5 years, right? So this is why I'm saying to you, it's more sad.
Yes.
I wish Steve all the best.
Yes.
But the other thing that has come out of all of this is that this thing where Steve said he was independent. And that was the joke that was happening in Parliament.
Yes.
Where I said to him, when he said to me, another 2 weeks and you and Bradley would have lost. I said, man, that blue wave was really a tsunami, right? He said, yes. I said, well, when you see the tsunami came back, it wasn't blue, it was red, okay? And so that is the reality.
Yeah.
Steve is not independent. Richard is not independent. Yeah. That's just all a facade to have confused, and he succeeded in doing it, confusing the voters. But people now need to know, and people change in life. We're entitled to change. Steve grew up in the United Workers' Party. If it got to the point where he didn't share in the values, he didn't like the people, and he wasn't comfortable with it, that's fine. Move on. And I guess what? I wish him all the best. And
I'll leave it there. The last question I want to give you before we really bring in callers, and we hope we can bring them, is traditionally, the UWP have been a party that stood behind its candidates. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes and support this one, everybody goes. This last election, and this is a two-pronged question. This last election, it seems to me everybody was on their own. Everyone had to fend for themselves, constituency by constituency. Mm-hmm. The other thing is, the UWP have a habit of having, now I know you had to push out a number of people out of the door. And some of them you had to open the door for them too as well in your party. But somehow I think you all probably pushed out too many people. And I think the election on election day shows that. It showed that. So I'm saying, it's a two-pronged question as I said. Why you all divorce yourself from the traditional UWP supporting each and every candidate in every constituency instead of leaving everyone to fend for themselves? And why, although you had to push out some people, but why your people on the ground was so inexperienced and allow you? And I think if UWP lost this election, I think was supposed to lose the election, I believe they lost it worse on election day. What say you?
So I don't want to comment too much because there's a review that's taking place. Okay, and I don't want to prejudice the review. I'm certainly have given my 2 cents to the people who are doing the review of the elections. But I would say to you, Ras, that the election was lost on the ground. And the numbers are there for everybody to see. So first of all, the 13 members of the Labour Party won with a popular vote of 51% and won by 6,000 votes. Mm-hmm. View Fort, 2,500. Kenny Anthony, 1,500 or 1,600. Okay? So those two are 4,000. So the remaining 11 seats were won by 2,000 votes, which is under 200 votes. Mm-hmm. You have some seats, 66 votes, 110 votes, all right? With very low voter turnout. Castries Central, 40% voter turnout, 40%. Yeah. Okay? This speaks to a lack of mobilization on the ground, okay? And the question the report will have to find out, was that because the party machinery was not working, or was it that people were despondent, or was it a combination of both?
What I'm going to do, as you said, that is I'm going to open the lines now. I don't know how much time. I don't know how much time. We may have to bring you back again. I think, Mr. Political Leader, because we had a lot of issues to discuss, and I'm sure people out there. So what we'll do is put the numbers here out there and to anticipate your calls to the Leader of the Opposition as to some of some of the discussion, some of the things we have discussed so far tonight. And as you could see, it was a very interesting kind of discussion with the Leader of the Opposition. As I would say, the caller is there now already. Caller, wait, come in, caller.
Good evening. Yes.
I'm not hearing nothing.
Okay, good evening.
Yes, no. Go ahead, caller.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening,
I just want to say good evening to Ipa and the Leader of the Opposition.
Good evening, sir. Good evening.
Interesting program tonight. Very, very interesting.
Thank you very much.
I had lost my appetite for calling, but now I have it again. Thank you, Ipa, for this medium. In your discussion, there were a few things that I want to get answers on. In terms of racism, it is, so strange that our flag has white, it has black, it has yellow, it has the colors that represent our people. But sadly, they made this issue of race. Then we need to ask the Chinese, we need to ask the Indians for forgiveness, because they are part of our country and they are part of what is St. Lucia. Because when we think of history,
The caller got cut off.
brought here.
Okay, all right.
Those persons were brought here.
As
now,
well.
in terms of crime, Mr. Minister, in terms of crime, I want to say that the former Commissioner of Mr. Regis highlighted a technical component that is missing in the Ministry of Home Affairs. And I'm hoping that we can introduce this. And the minimum wage, I'm hoping that we can introduce a minimum wage. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your call, caller. Merci un pile, caller. Nous apprécions appel. We appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what he's saying, he says without saying anything else, I think.
I don't know whether you heard the point that Regis was making. I don't know.
I didn't hear it, so I don't know if it's a point he made a long time on this show,
Right.
or if he made a point some time ago, but I didn't hear it.
And I would just say to you, look, racism has always existed. So let's not pretend it doesn't exist, okay? And racism normally is used to marginalize people.
Yeah, because you see, the thing where you write on that is that people think if I say I don't like you or I don't like your color, that's racism. That's actually not racism. Racism is if when you say that, if you can put it into action to prevent me from going to school because I'm black or because I'm white or because I'm green. And it has to be something that is going to cause, because of who you are and your complexion, your pigmentation, I'm going to, in a sense, I might say, in St. Lucia, what happened in terms of our politics, it could be described as racism. Because you want to deny somebody the opportunity to represent the country because of the color of the skin. In St. Lucia, the people who have worked the hardest to protect our environment, believe it or not, are people of a certain kind of pigmentation.
Well, look, I want to get away from that because I don't think I think that we're the ones that we're aware of maybe the white foreigners that are here who care about all the dogs and everything else that are on the streets. But the reality is that there is no place for racism.
We don't want that. Yeah.
And that's the point that people need to get to.
Yes.
And Martin Luther King said, "I want the day where I'm going to be judged by the content of
my character.
Okay,
not the color of my skin.
Right, and this is again another very famous saying, right? Action speaks louder than words, right? Let your deeds speak for you. And I think that that's where we fall apart a little bit in our society.
Yes.
We allow...
So call, listen a bit. Don't forget us there. Make sure the numbers are there for you to call and make sure you make your voices be heard. Yes.
The role of the media is not to make up people's minds for them. The role of the media is to bring different perspectives on an issue and allow people to make up their minds for themselves. And we have too many shows in which people are being brainwashed. And again, the half-truths are being told. And because it's on this particular medium, it becomes a truth, right?
That's true.
And we cannot go away from what our judgment is. At the end of it, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Yes, good night, caller.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I want to make a comment on something that Mr. Allen said about losing the election was like on his color skin, and I disagree with that. Your color of skin didn't make you lose election. You lose election by a lot of different attitude you had and character. Like words from your mouth was bad to the country.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, all like you used to call people, telling people like we illiterate, we have 43% education.
I never said anybody was illiterate, sir.
Yeah, you said we have 43% illiterate preschool. We was in illiterate at preschool.
That was a statistic provided by the Ministry of Education. Yes. But it was not me. I was not saying that people were illiterate. So I think there's a difference. And if you took it that way, I understand and I appreciate that and I respect that. But that's not what I was saying. I was never saying that people were illiterate. I was saying that our education system was failing us.
Well, it comes into the same thing.
No, it doesn't come to the same thing.
And a lot of other things like the way you manage the country, using the money of the country that wasn't good in the COVID.
How you know that?
During the COVID time,
yes.
All the money you borrowed, you didn't help people enough with it.
But sir, during COVID, government's revenue dropped by 50%.
I know everything.
Okay,
I know.
So the money.
Caller, let him say what he's saying. You'll have a chance to talk.
We lost about $600 million of revenue.
I want to make a comment because I won't have money to listen
problem.
to the phone all the time.
Okay, well, ask him the question and let's move on. Yes.
Wait, I just want to make a few comments and then I'll listen to you. All about the money you borrow. You said that you was giving to people who lost their job. And $600 million, we did not use, that money wasn't used on the people who lost their job. You only use about $7 million from it all the time, all bus drivers and those things.
You see, but caller, hold on. He also spent a lot of this money building roads and creating other projects and so on.
I don't want you to run out. I don't want you to run out of time. So ask the other question, and I'll be happy.
Didn't have anything to do that.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, okay.
No
all
problem.
right. Okay then. All right. Next caller.
So I just want
next caller. We're supposed to have a next caller online.
Hello?
Hello, good night.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, my former Prime Minister. How are you?
Very good, ma'am. How are you?
I must say I have been happy with the way you've been carrying yourself. I hope you continue because you are a very impressive leader and you tried your best. Now, in speaking, I listened to you and you said something, correct me if I'm wrong, that the VAT would have gone down to 10% to assist persons. Is that what you were saying?
We would change the way in which we help the more vulnerable people in our society.
Yes, the vulnerable, yes.
So instead of subsidizing rice, flour, and sugar and other products for everybody in the country, we would allow those prices to be what they're supposed to be.
Okay.
Use the money now to provide direct support to the vulnerable persons in our society, which would have then allowed us to lower the VAT rate, because remember everybody's scared to adjust the VAT rate because the VAT rate is supposed to be helping poor people by making the food items less costly. But by now dealing with the vulnerable separately, we would have the ability to lower the VAT rate now to 10%, and that's what we wanted to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
And that would allow the economy to grow, hire more people, and maybe now we have less vulnerable people.
Okay. Thank you, caller. We'll not be able to accommodate another call. We'll just have to accommodate another caller. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We appreciate it very much. Caller, come in. Caller, come in.
Hi, yes. Is this Ipa?
Yeah, this is Ras Ipa.
Ipa, this is Dominic Fede.
Dominic Fede, how are you doing, sir?
You and the political leader for having a tremendous show tonight. Really good discussion, gentlemen. This kind of depth and this kind of intellect is clearly missing from the present regime. I mean, as I listened to them in the first few months of their tenure of running this country, they seem so preoccupied with blaming the United Workers' Party for everything. But I feel we really have some serious challenges in this country. And the political leader, he has done an exceptional job tonight in articulating a lot of those problems that we face. We have a spiraling crime rate. We have in our supermarket shelves, the price of food is spiraling out of control, especially in the last 4 months. And that is largely because of the global disruption to the supply chain. But there are a few things that we have outlined that government can do to ease the pain on the people of St. Lucia. All of the promises that they have made to the people of St. Lucia, it is time that they deliver on those promises. Your sector, for example, is one that I care about very, very much, with all the work that we have done together while I served as minister. I visited your vendors at the lay-by yesterday, and they were decrying the present scenario, no income support. The taxi drivers are not asked to stop there. They're not included in the present cruise ship offering that's taking place. So we really have some big problems. And I really want to congratulate the two of you gentlemen for getting back to the issues that really matter. And that is fixing our economy, ensuring that we have a very clearly articulated plan for national security, ensuring that our education system, the reforms that we have started, that they can continue, and so that we can have the very best system possible for our students. So really good discussion. Keep it up. And congratulations on a great show. All of your answers, Mr. Political Leader, have really been sound, and I know that the people of St. Lucia miss you as Prime Minister of this country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Dominic Fede. Mr. Senator, thank you very much. Next caller, please. Come in. Next caller, come in, please. Yeah. Next caller.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Hi, Mr. Leader of the Opposition. How are you this evening?
Very good, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Best thing to ever happen to St. Lucia. Best Prime Minister. I'm a hotel worker, and I was impressed with the work you did as a Prime Minister and the hotel sector. Best Prime Minister. We're missing you.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best, and I hope you become our next Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you
and
very
thank
much.
you for all the work that you guys do for St. Lucia. 15,000 ambassadors that we have every day representing St. Lucia.
Thank you very much. Well, as you know, we mentioned a lot, but as the lady mentioned, the hotel sector, from when you started opening the country. Okay, caller, come in, please.
Hello.
Hello, come in.
Hello.
Hello, good night, come in. You're on.
Good night.
Good night.
Hi. Oh, my Prime Minister. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. You have been the best Prime Minister ever.
Thank you very much.
You have done so much work. And for Mr. King, all I have to say that he has wasted 40 years of his life. And he's just crawling like a baby now. He knows that very well. And I know that he has regretted that a lot. And one thing I want to say, we have to work. And the work is down there for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nobody there doing anything for St. Lucia right now. All the talk and all the all the charade that was made, the charade is down in the gutter now. Mr. Stevenson King, he thought he was doing something good for himself or for the country of St. Lucia. He knows that he has fallen the dream. So, Mr. Prime Minister, I want you to be there for us. The job that you are doing a very great job, even in opposition. Okay, we know that whenever the time comes, you are going to be our next Prime Minister. Don't bother yourself too much. Don't bother about your color. We like your color. You did just like Sir John. Sir John told me, I was one of Sir John's spa, and he told me that I asked him, Sir John, why you can't put someone there to be the leader when you leave? And he told me, no. When the leader comes, you will see the leader. You will see the person, and you will see that person is a leader. So whatever St. Lucian did, they didn't do it on their own. They didn't do it on their own. We know that. We know what happened at the election, and we know very well, very soon, that we are going to have a next election. We just have to work very hard to make sure that when the next election comes, you will be ready. And you have to be ready very soon, because we are going to have another election very soon. Just put things together, work and put things together. We are going to have another election soon. Okay?
All right. Thank you
you
very much. Thank you very much, caller. On the question of Dubai, what really happened? Because we're hearing some conflicting stories on Dubai as to why they had to bring this contingent of people and why so many. And if it was you, would you have so many people?
First of all, when the Prime Minister was asked the question, he should not have played politics. So he played politics by saying that was a project that was started by the United Workers' Party. Mm-hmm. Ernest Hilaire gave a different story.
Oh my goodness.
He said that the project was because globally we agreed to have international trade shows and that we're going to support them. And we voted for UAE to host that event. UAE paid for our booth and paid for participation, etc. We had to decide which entity was going to take the lead in the show in Dubai. Because this has been going back years in planning. And we said we would not do tourism.
Caller, come in.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Good night, Ipa.
Good night, sir.
And good night, Honorable Opposition Leader.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, I want to ask you one question here. What advice would you give now to save the historical archives we have up at the moon at Radio St. Lucia, the Independence program, and all those historical data on tape in the studios up there? What advice would you give to save them for future children of St. Lucia?
You know, it's very, very sad when we went up and did the audit of that building.
Thank you.
Do you know where all of the archive tapes were? A chicken coop outside of the building. And they've been so damaged. So it's going to take a lot to restore the information that was there. And that's why, you know, some of those persons who were talking about patrimony and everything else, where was their concern for patrimony before?
When they put all of them there.
Right? The Radio St. Lucia's building was there was a big hole in the middle of the floor. The roof was coming down. That's the condition the Radio St. Lucia is in. And persons want to come now and talk about patrimony.
Okay, but you were saying something. I think that is for a bigger show.
Yes.
To talk about Radio St. Lucia.
So
but you were talking about
with Dubai. So the fact is that there are no tourists coming from the Middle East to St. Lucia.
I don't think so.
And there's no tourists coming from the Middle East to any other country in the Caribbean. Okay? In order to get tourism from that area would require, first of all, airlift. So currently somebody from UAE wants to come to St. Lucia, They have to fly to London or fly to Paris or fly to New York and come down. Okay, and we get none. All right? What people don't understand is that it's not about just money. It's about time, because time is money. Okay? So we had decided the two products that we were going to attempt to promote in Dubai that we had an opportunity to sell was CIP, because we get a lot of persons coming from there and from India and from Pakistan and from Africa, of which Dubai is a big hub, right? Who are interested in becoming citizens in Lucia. And then the other one was our products.
Your final caller.
Yes, Ipa, quickly. Ipa, hello.
Hello.
Yes, Ipa got cut off maybe inadvertently a while ago. The question I asked, I was hoping that the leader of the opposition, the honorable leader, would have give us an answer how to go about saving it, because before the unceremonious closure of
But caller, you must appreciate that we don't have much time to.
Okay,
that's a huge undertaking. I'm sure you would agree with that. Had you called earlier, probably we would accommodate that. But what we will do is that hold on, caller. What we will do is that we will find some other time, I'm sure, when the leader of the opposition make himself available, so that we will be able to deal with that. But what I really want from
but just to give him really quick, because he's asking the caller's asking specifically about the archives, the old tapes that were there. And I think I answered the question. The fact is the archives, the tapes were in a chicken coop outside of the building and had become damaged because of the weather. Now, to go and recover that is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. And that's really the sad reality. And what I'm saying is that they should have never been put in the chicken coop in the first place.
So continue, because I think
so the goal was really to go to Dubai and focus on CIP. For this administration, first of all, to make the excuse, to your point, that this was already in train, and so therefore they had to go. That's a lie, because there were other things that were in train, to your point, that they didn't do. They then expanded the number of people who went. And the Minister of Tourism went, the Director of Tourism went, the Chairman of the Tourist Board went, and a whole bunch of other people. And what I'm saying is, right now, Ras, that we have flights coming in from the States at a 50% load factor. You have a massive opportunity in the UK, because they've taken all the travel restrictions away. Where they should be is they should have been in London, they should have been in New York, they should have been in Chicago, they should be in Dallas promoting. And also, the fact is, and it's not about being insulting, Ernest Hilaire is a neophyte when it comes to tourism. Okay?
I've said it.
Okay? The second thing is, sadly, he has a quality of arrogance to him. And so it makes it difficult for a person like that to learn. But I would have hoped that he would have taken the opportunity to go to the Roots conference, which is all the airlines, heard firsthand. In fact, if he was interested in exploring Dubai as a potential place, that's the meeting where you would have gone to meet Emirates and meet Qatar Airlines and hear firsthand from them what it was going to take in order to get those flights. But meanwhile, we have a significant amount of airlift, because Dominic Fede did a fantastic job. When we knew the Canadian market wouldn't recover, we knew that the Caribbean market was not going to recover, and we saw what was taking place in Mexico and the Dominican Republic, where their U.S. business was growing, where the U.S. business now was larger than all of the business they had before. So we knew that the U.S. business could grow to substitute for Canada and substitute for the Caribbean. We went and we got the airlift. So it means the possibility of doing it. But meanwhile, the flights are coming in half full. What you have to go do is promote. Now, if another couple of weeks go by and they don't increase the demand for those flights, then the flights are going to go away. So we saw today that the government amended the protocols. I don't think that they've amended them sufficiently. Okay? My government took a bold decision last January to allow vaccinated people to come into St. Lucia with a PCR test and to be able to go around the island. So it helped stimulate the rent-a-car business. People now started to come down to the market, and started getting the tourism thing going. I believe at this point, vaccinated people should be allowed to come in without a test. And we should be lobbying the US government, like what happened in UK, that Americans coming here can go back to the US without being tested once you're vaccinated. Okay? They've said it themselves. Over 80% of the people coming to St. Lucia are vaccinated.
Vaccinated, yes.
Right? Let us put the responsibility on our people at this point because everybody has a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
When we first had the very stringent protocols, people didn't know.
Yes.
And look at it. We didn't even have testing capability, Ras. We didn't have respirators. We had nothing. So when we put in the tough protocols, it was to buy time. What did we do? We fixed up Victoria Hospital. We got our own testing equipment, right? And we did a great job in containing the virus. So the reality is St. Lucia has come a long way. What we need to do is to stimulate this economy. We don't have enough money right now to pay for the marketing to generate the demand for this destination. So one of the quickest ways would be to say, allow people who have been vaccinated to come into the country, right, without a test. Because I've traveled. Other people have traveled. It's a pain. And the other one that we have to fix up is this application process through the internet, the one we do on the website. You know, you arrive here.
Yeah, people have complained, to tell you the truth.
And
People have
it's like the people
that this is more rigid than ever.
Okay, and it is cumbersome, and there are flaws in it, and I take responsibility as well. But we've not fixed those flaws, and we've got to find a simpler way. The world is opening up, and people want to go where it's easy. St. Thomas, Hawaii, booming because it's easy to be able to travel. Mexico and the Dominican Republic and Grenada have done the same thing. I'm really encouraging the government to re-look, examine this situation in order to make sure that we can keep the tourism business. And I would love to come back to your show and speak specifically about tourism because we have to have that hard discussion.
I think so because there are a few things that I need to ask you about. What would you do differently in terms of how they're treating us, the vendors, and so on? Because we went through some training.
Yes, deliberately, because we knew what the problem was.
Yeah, so we started the training via your time. We did some things in terms of trying something in terms of the establishing the protocol at the vendors arcade. And Mr. Hiller just came and started talking about how 10 of us could go at Point Seraphine and all this kind of thing. And I'm saying to them, but what about we have this facility there? And I'm glad you mentioned something like what you said there. The captains are allowing people with a negative PCR test and fully vaccinated to disembark the ship and go anywhere. Why now we are saying to these people, well, don't go at the vendors arcade, don't go here, don't go at the craft market. And that's one of some of the things I would like to bring you back here so we could discuss tourism on that level and some other levels that I think we need to talk about in tourism in terms of...
So to whet everybody's appetite, the tourism discussion must take place on a philosophical position, first of all.
Yeah.
This idea where people in St. Lucia are saying, we're investing too much in tourism, we need to diversify from tourism, okay? By growing tourism, it will help in the diversification of the rest of our economy. Because tourism does not displace agriculture, it strengthens agriculture. It doesn't displace manufacturing, it strengthens manufacturing. It doesn't displace our creative industry, it strengthens it, okay? So the fact is that if we didn't have tourism, Ras, a St. Lucian couldn't fly to New York, you know. We couldn't fly to Atlanta, couldn't fly to Chicago, we can't fly to London, we can't fly to Toronto, we can't fly to Montreal. Go to St. Vincent and go to Dominica. The Dominicans got a flight 3 times a week to Miami. They think they've died and gone to heaven. Okay, why? All of a sudden they have a couple of hotel rooms.
Yeah.
The reality, the more hotel rooms that we're able to get on the island, the more airlift we're going to have, the more airlift we have, the greater opportunities we're creating for ourselves.
You mentioned something on another show about hotel rooms. That places that are much smaller than us have more hotel rooms than us.
Aruba is 70 square miles. We're 240 square miles. Aruba has 15,000 rooms.
And we?
5.
Excuse me. Sorry about my point.
And we think that we are overdeveloped. The reality is we've not begun to develop our country. And I have numbers I can show everybody to prove that. But before we end, and I know you want to end, I think that there's one thing that the gentleman asked. There's a recurring decimal theme, and it's a misunderstanding that people have. I did not say tonight that I lost the election because of racism. I said it was a contributing factor.
Yeah.
Okay? The second thing is that people keep saying, well, you didn't spend the money on us. The money was spent to pay salaries of government workers.
Okay, let me make this your final
Please.
point. Okay.
We were earning $110 million a month in revenue before COVID. And our operating cost was $100 million. When COVID came, the revenue dropped to $45 million in the first month. But let's say it averaged $55 million for the rest of the year. So we lost $55 million a month. And our operating cost went up by $10 million. Because you had to operate Victoria Hospital, you had all the PCR testing, you had the hotels that you were renting for the people coming down, all the overtime, everything else. Okay? So we had a $600 million shortfall on the budget. We borrowed $300 million. We used overdrafts from the central bank and overdrafts from the local banks and our payables. We used to have payables of 30 million. We went to payables of 170 million. That's where the $600 million came from. And all that $600 million covered was $43 million a month in salaries, $30 million a month in debt financing, $30 million a month to keep government running.
You didn't even talk about
keeping
people in the what do you call it?
For the subsidy for the quarantine,
the COVID quarantine.
Yeah, but that's the extra 10 million. Okay,
that's the extra 10.
A month, huh? A month.
But what happened?
So when people are saying, "What did you do with the money?" Yeah. There was the money was.
What happened? Were you saying that, or is it because of all the puns that were beaten? People couldn't hear you all saying that.
Well,
or you all were not saying it.
We were saying it over and over again. I can show you tapes.
Yeah, but I'm not saying you wasn't saying
yes.
it. I'm just saying, was it because the noise around, the kind of help your noise and the puns that were beaten?
And so, but that is a nature of politics, and particularly as you get around to elections. And this is where, again, I can say to the gentleman, this is where you can see that racism contributed. So it became an attack on Allen. Okay? He's a white fellow. He doesn't care about us. This and that and blah, blah. And look at it.
That resonated. I agree with you.
And look at that. He's not using the money in the right way. And he promised me.
Because they fought the way people were talking about that money, to tell you the truth.
Yes.
And maybe I'm sorry, I must apologize to my people because maybe I made some errors in that area too. That I thought that you probably should have used that money. And some people say this money was given to give to people. And although I was saying I don't think it was supposed to be go on Jeremy Street and call everybody and send the money up and say,
so where it was to give the people money. Yeah. If in fact we did not get that money, I would have had to shut down government services. So who was going to pay the nurses? Who was going to pay the policemen? Who was going to pay the teachers?
But the question about you didn't leave no money there, and the government is running all now, so, and they're getting paid and so on. They're paying salaries, they're paying so. They didn't bring in any supplementary budget neither.
They lasted the whole year.
And
not only that, Ras, the economy grew by 6.9%.
That's in 2021. Yes.
And we were the second highest growth in the Caribbean.
I didn't even believe that.
Only behind Guyana.
Yeah.
And if in fact the government had not stopped the construction projects, I think we would have grown by 10%.
By 10%.
That is how you solve the problem.
Yes,
now, what the gentleman was saying is just a half-truth that was said. Yes, we got the money. Yes, the money was to help support the people, but by keeping government employed, people
but not just to give people money.
No, it was just to keep government running.
Yes.
Okay, let me say something to you, Ras. And it's a very different concept for people to have understood, and I know that. We have bonds. The bonds don't even fall in the budget. So we had $900 million of bonds that were coming due. So it means that people's bonds were maturing and we would have to pay the $900 million. Traditionally, everybody rolls over their bonds, meaning that we don't have to find any money, they just roll over the bond. So we just write them a new piece of paper and we put a new date on the bond for them. 25% of those people, close to $200 million, they wanted their money back. So in addition to paying salaries, paying debt, paying government operations, paying for the increased costs, we had to find money to pay the people for their bonds. Because if we didn't pay for their bonds, and that's why we'd spoken to the civil servants.
Yes.
Okay? So the reality is there was no money. The money that we borrowed was simply to fill a hole.
A hole. What I'm going to do right now is to just ask you to give your final thoughts, just finally,
I certainly want to again use this opportunity to thank the people from Micoud South for their continued support and blessings and good wishes. For all those persons who called me when I had COVID and gave me their best wishes, and like some of the callers today, who when you see me, you hug me and you thank me for what's going on. And for those persons who fell out of favor with Allen Chastanet. I don't resent any of you. I have no hatred towards anyone. I understand that people will be a different interpretation sometimes and have a different perspective. But my commitment to building a new St. Lucia is still there. And I think that the Dubai lesson is a very important one. Here it was that we were attempting to do the DSH project. And again, we talk about half truths. The argument was that the $110 million was spent on the horse racing track. That's true. But $110 million of DSH's money was spent on the horse racing track. So who can have a problem with a foreign man coming here saying, I'm going to build a world-class horse racing track, use his own money and build it, and we have a problem with it? Who has a problem where we want to make Vieux-Fort world-class? That's not only going to help the people in the South, but it's going to help St. Lucia, right? And those same persons that were criticizing that, in 6 months have been to Dubai 3 times. So it begs the question, is Dubai good for them, but it's not good for the rest of us?
Yes,
okay?
Correct.
The reality is, we are in a very competitive world, one that has no conscience. They don't care. We have to take care of our own business. And therefore it requires a plan, but all plans are subject to changes based on the change. We didn't know about COVID. Nobody knew about the war in Ukraine. And then all of a sudden, if gas prices go up, you have to change, and you have to be willing to change. And that's the reality. We don't have the ability to say, stop the war. We don't have the ability to say, we don't want COVID to come to St. Lucia. We have to adjust and adapt. And we have to learn to communicate to each other in a better way. That's my lesson that I'm going to take away from this whole thing, is that regardless of how many times you've said something, you need to say it again and again and again. But I'm hoping that in this reprieve, where this new government is in office, that persons now will have a comparison. We had a comparison for independence. Okay? When I came in, I went to my first independence. I said I will never want to participate in independence like this, because it was achieving nothing in building patriotism in our country, and being able to expose the local talent that we have that we could be all proud of. And we started that process. This government came in and chose to celebrate independence in Dubai. Not here in St. Lucia. And I think that these are going to be many more examples of things that we were doing, and we're now going to have a comparison. And United Workers' Party, it remains committed to building a new St. Lucia, remains committing to putting our country first, and remains on excellence, not mediocrity, but excellence.
I want to say thank you very much for accepting the invitation to come on this program here. And what I'm going to do is, as time goes by, when you have time, you're connected to me by this time. And so you'll feel that when is the right time for us to come in and have a further discussion. On tourism.
And very importantly, Castries redevelopment. Which was already started. And you know those plans.
I know about these things.
Okay?
I know about
And the fact is where we were going to take Castries, which started with the vendors in the back. Look at the condition that those vendors were in when I came into office. And look where they are today. And the plans that we had to continue building the Castries redevelopment and eventually the vendors arcade. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yes, so I want to say thank you very much for coming. And Pale Fwanchman, vous avez savoir c'était Pale Fwanchman avec moi, Ras Ipa. Comme vous savez, nous tenons pour nous programme là, puis c'est un spécial programme de nous là, avec leader opposition, M. Allen Chastanet. Avec nous, Kaido, ça c'était Pale Fwanchman, avec nous, Kai, répéter programme ça là, dimanche à 11h, avec lundi à 6h matin.